Hello, gorgeous people, and welcome to another TV Central one-on-one podcast. I'm Aaron Ryan. This is episode 8, 2023, and the 5th of the Australian Survivor elimination episodes, although this is the 6th elimination overall. The biggest tribal council ever. Blindside after blindside after blindside after blindside, and Fraser was caught in the crossfire. Let's talk to Fraser Lack now. Fraser, thanks for joining me here at TV Central.
Thank you for having me. Excited to get into it.
Well, first question, Fraser. What the actual F?
I think that should have been the title for the episode. But yeah, look, honestly, the most crazy turn of events, absolutely hectic. I think the show did a very good depiction of how insane and intense it was in person, but nothing will come close to actually living it.
And I tell you what, promos, when they're saying biggest thing ever in shows, it never actually turns out to be that. But I think
it's always a letdown.
But not this time. Channel 10's
Not
promos absolutely lived up to it. So let's start from your perspective. You believe the vote was for Simon initially, and then he won that immunity challenge, and then the vote swung to Stevie. Did you have absolutely no knowledge there was a plan C?
No knowledge at all. It was clean as day, blindside. And as you can see, that plan hatched for me to go home happened in an instant. It wasn't premeditated. It wasn't something that was well considered and, had been plotted for days. And there was this distaste and hatred for me, for Fraser. But you could see the scramble happening before your eyes, the whispers everywhere, right? The smaller circles breaking apart. And you do see that one moment where George has Shonee and Liz and he just says, trust me, just trust me, do it. And that's all we see until it all unfolds. And those three had voted me out.
Well, let's go back a little bit. Why did you join Geordie and jump off the, the Simon bandwagon? The four of you had the numbers for George. If George had immunity and used it, you could have then swung the vote to one of the girls, and then George would have been next. So why did you jump off the Simon bandwagon?
Look, a couple of good questions to unpack there. We felt the tribe swap was imminent. Our numbers had dissipated. We were such a small tribe at that part. I was the sixth member out, essentially. We were half a tribe left, right?
Yeah.
We felt the tribe swap was coming. And as soon as that happened, we felt as such that Simon would have broed up with the other big guys on the other tribe, the other athletes as such, David, Sean, Sam, and Matt, and would have left us, on the sidelines, right? So we had to make a plan. We had to make a change in our game for the long term. And we felt that we didn't want to go into a tribe swap in a minority. We wanted to go in knowing that we're a part of a larger collective, even if it was at the bottom of a majority. Much rather be on that side of the numbers. So we wanted to work with Shonee and Liz moving forward, and George was an attachment to that.
Well, now that you've seen what's happened, would you have changed that theory now, or is the premise still correct? Even though you have been eliminated, you still would have been a sitting duck if the tribes had emerged.
I think we made the best decision we could at the time with the information we had. The girls had sort of developed, Shonee and Liz had developed this kind of just annoyance for Simon and his level of authority or his leadership style, and that had just gotten to them. They, the trio, the Spice Girls, as we've seen it, they were super close, right? We felt it was the right decision. It was the right call. We wanted to shake things up. It was getting predictable. Simon was so headstrong on George, that even if we had tried to change his opinion to vote Liz or Shonee, I don't think we would have been able to. He was so headstrong on, this is the only option. This is the only option. We're not listening to anyone else's opinion or idea. It is George tonight. So even if we had an inkling that George was playing an idol, and I did feel as such, and and Geordie and I were saying to Simon, look, we can't vote for George. He could have an idol. He could well have an idol. He didn't want to hear it, and that kind of, we had to sort of go, okay, he's not willing to hear our thoughts and reason, then we're going to have to continue with our original plan, vote as a pack of 5, George, Shonny, Liz, myself and Geordie. Let's vote for Stevie, not knowing full well that George wanted to blow shit up and vote me out.
Well, from a Survivor strategy point of view only, do you think George is the king? I mean, from my lounge room, he had every angle covered, game, set, and match. Do you give George props, or do you have another opinion about George?
I think it's very interesting because he said it out loud that he achieved everything and more that he wanted to in his first season. Okay. Do I think it was the best move for his strategy long term? I don't think so. Do I think it would have done a lot for his game in the long term? I don't know. Right? It was a big move, and that night worked perfectly. But could we have woken up the next day in a strong 5 alliance? Right? Had changed the outcome of the game for him? Maybe. But I definitely say that he had that plan under lock and it played out perfectly. Right? He tried to get Simon to burn his so-called idol for Stevie, knowing full well the 3 of them had voted for me. Right? So, that it was the perfect plan. To my demise, it worked. But, I honestly believe that he wanted to make a statement. He wanted to ruffle feathers. He wanted to cause chaos, and he wanted to be remembered. And I think that was really, in my opinion, the whole purpose behind it.
It is what it is kind of situation, or are you actually a little bit cheesed off that you literally were set up to teach Simon a lesson, basically? You literally had nothing to do with anything, but to teach this lesson, George had to get rid of either you or Geordie, but of course it made more sense to keep Geordie because he it was revealed that he was treacherous and betrayed Simon, so it's probably better to keep him. You were just collateral damage. Is that a little bit annoying?
It's a little bit annoying, but you kind of have to be at peace with that part of the game, right? That there will be so many twists and turns, and you know what? It's frustrating and it sucks to go out earlier than you probably hoped or anticipated or you dreamt, but it is the natural progression. People leave Survivor, vote after vote, right? And it sucks that it was probably, there was not too much thought as to who it would be, really. Probably it's Fraser or Geordie. Either of us could have gone, right? But I'm at peace with that. I think, I respect a lot of the guys that I played with. Don't have to speak to all of them again. But I don't hold anything against Shonny or Liz for what they did. I think they made the best decision they could. And you know what? George made the decision that it was my name that night. So the 3 of them voted that way. And look, probably rightfully so, because I think at some point in the future, whether it was the next vote, the next day, whatever it might be, the votes might have been heading his way from myself or Geordie anyway.
The thing I really have not understood, and I keep asking everyone for all of these podcasts, is why keep these big players like Simon and George in? You're all literally just getting picked off one by one. Every podcast I ask this question, and people have reasons such as protecting their game and all that sort of stuff. But the reality is there is no protection, because all those people that are keeping George and Simon in for protection are being eliminated, and they're all talking to me on a podcast. So why not get rid of George?
Well, the conversation then leads to, okay, if he have been there on day 1 elimination instead of being injured, would he still be around at this point in the game? A lot of people hypothesize that, right? He was injured and actually missed tribal council, so many different things can happen. And there were reasons for each vote thereafter, right? It wasn't like the votes thereafter were for no reason, right? And that there was no better option. I think the tribe collectively, and that's why it's always the majority vote wins, right? More people than not believe that other people should have gone home before him. And that's as simple as it is. You know, it's easy to watch it from the comfort of your home and go, why didn't you do this? But when you're there, it's so much more intense. And these are real people. These aren't just characters. George's character, but these are real people. That's reality. That's the reality of it, right? And judging who you can actually work with and who you can trust. Sometimes it's the devil you know, not the one you don't. And obviously, you know, Liz and Shonee saw the strength in George and his understanding of the game and his plans, which is why they wanted to keep him.
Tell me about the game versus friendship thing. Geordie made the decision to play the game rather than honour a friendship. He's been revealed as a massive treacherous player now. He got George on his side for 2 seconds, but nobody's going to trust Geordie now. Surely the answer is not game or friendship, isn't it? Both. I'm not quite understanding that game versus friendship thing.
It's a hard one. I don't know how to answer that really. I mean, I am worried for Geordie now. It's and our tribe as a whole. It is a hard spot. They even left Stevie looking very unsure of what had just unfolded. You know, he was really stumped. You know, and it is hard to go against your word. It is difficult to tell people one thing and do another. And I know that's the game, but we are still all human, right? And, you know, like I remember when I was telling Stevie, no, definitely it's George, and then doing the opposite and talking with Geordie and saying, yep, we're voting for Stevie, you know, like, and I haven't been able to sort of reconcile that. But, you know, it does suck to do that to a person that you think is good and well-intentioned.
So with Simon now, I mean, his strategy is now his strategy, but just thinking about the game, what would his play be now? Because obviously he's a sitting duck.
Yeah, he's a sitting duck. It's as simple as that. Look, he's in a really tough spot, and I think he is clutching at straws to make it through to a tribe swap, which would hopefully be the next day in his case, to try and set himself up in a new environment with new people and clean the slate, because this tribe, as it stands, is doomed and no one is safe.
Yeah, for sure. And what do you think Simon actually has in terms of that immunity idol, in inverted commas?
Look, see, this is the funny thing. No one got to see it. Geordie got to feel it, as we saw, but no one really got to see it. So I think it's some form of clue. I think it's some form of clue. Very nondescript, though, because it really doesn't give too much away from when we've seen Simon showing it now, looking back at the game. But yeah, look, you know what? And if he had played it and we've sort of learned that it's not a real idol since the show's come about, it wouldn't have done anything anyway.
Yeah. All right, last question. Because you've obviously been, I'm guessing, watching the series play out now. Yeah. Who, you know, as a fan of the show and watching, who would you like to see win? I mean, it doesn't have to be from the villain tribe. It could be anybody. Who would you like to see at the end?
Geordie has my vote 100% of the time, any day of the week. If I'm sitting there at the final tribal council, he's got the money in my eyes. Yeah, I've got so much time, respect, love for Geordie. He's an awesome human. He's just a really good person. And you know what, like, if there's anything I take away from this game, other than obviously an amazing experience, once is amazing, twice if you're lucky, 3 if you're Shonee. But other than that, to take away really good friendships from the game, doing such a unique experience that can't be replicated, and a friendship with Geordie, you know, like, that's just special. So he's got my vote. But, you know, I'd love to see Shonee and Liz do something. I would love to see Shonee do something different to what she has in previous years. And, you know, Liz is really interesting because she, again, as a first-time player, that'd be super exciting to see her, you know, excel. So But yeah, it's Geordie over everyone for me.
All right, interesting. Fraser, almost unfair, I would say, literally a sacrificial lamb in someone else's fight. What an episode! You played a big episode in a big tribal council. You played a great game, and definitely will be remembered in Survivor history as the guy caught in that crossfire on the big, on the big council, tribal council. Thanks for joining me here at TV Central.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate the time. Be well.
Fraser Lack, 6 eliminated from Australian Survivor. Australian Survivor, 7:30 Sunday, Monday and Tuesday on 10 and 10 Play. TV Central will be talking to almost every eliminated contestant. There'll be a podcast available around lunchtime, the day after an elimination. That's it for this episode. For the latest news, podcasts, streaming info, guides and ratings, head to tvcentral.com.au. Until next time, I'm Aaron Ryan. Thanks to Fraser Lack. Bye for now.